I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996 I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
Are you a man who once said death smiles at us all? All a man can do is smile back.
We've both been skull and bone, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go on.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322.
I sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russert, collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I am a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
What the fuck is up? Welcome to another Already Dead. We've got some, we're ready to bring in the new year with you guys. We got some news for y'all before we get into it. We got booked for Tinfoil Hat today, so that'll be happening soon. So just letting you guys know, we weren't full of shit. That will be happening. So that is the latest update in the Already Dead world. So that will be happening here soon. So, Austin, you were telling us before we started, you recently struck algorithmic gold in one of your latest episodes. So things looking up, upwards and onwards. It looks like, hopefully we can your videos can keep hitting that algo, keep stroking it just right.
Absolutely, brother. Whatever is happening, I'm down for the ride. I'll tell you that much. But I really think that, I don't know. I really think that there's at the very least, I'm not sure what the algorithmic, successful mark was that I can point to as far as what sort of influenced this episode, but it was the Ultimate Evil, the Process Church episode that's kind of doing really well, performing well. But so it seems to be that, my most recent, The Real True Detective, is doing fairly well, and so is the Vegas shooting episode too. So, and I'm excited about that. And any new subscribers, welcome to the channel. My YouTube is definitely in its infancy. It's just recently starting to kind of gain some momentum, but I honestly think that where there is an appetite for truth, which is kind of what this all started, as far as the foundation of my podcast. Like, you remember episode 1 was MK Ultra, right? So it's like I immediately jumped into the deep end, even though it was a much different approach and a very much more like limited, comprehensive perspective to it. I still the goal was to always kind of attempt to evolve the show in a way to where I could really answer questions for myself. Ultimately, these unanswerable questions were intended to remain beyond, behind the veil of ignorance. And, clearly they've been wielding propaganda techniques for generations. And so just recently covering Mockingbird as deeply as I have with William has kind of shed this new aspect to how much I always knew there was a very heavy hand, a very heavy hidden hand being involved and represented in Hollywood, right? And in as far as just different television series and Hollywood productions, but really the level of depth as far as the detailed evidence proving that point all the way up to modern day, it's more extraordinary than I even expected, right? Like I really didn't have, you know, any personal understanding of the overall, I think that the level of like influence that Mockingbird truly has had on just pop culture, not just pop culture, but right, just you know, modern cultural and culture in general, right? Kind of shaping our ideas in general. And I think that that alone is a terrifying prospect. And I think it's interesting when you see this recent, as far as the Claire Danes interview going viral again recently, right? I find it interesting because
Oh
when
yeah, we
Homeland
we
came
didn't we
out,
didn't cover a lot of this because I forgot for those unaware, we did not we weren't here last week, so
right?
it's been a busy couple weeks for conspiracy stuff, and we've been out for the past couple weeks. There's actually quite a bit that we probably will end up breezing over almost all of it. But go on.
Yeah, definitely, dude.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's ridiculous because with the new age of the social media platforms and the age of the fact checkers and content moderators, right? We have this simultaneously, we have these big tech oligarchs represented by the likes of Peter Thiel Network and which of course involves the PayPal mafia, including Elon Musk and JD Vance, who seemingly represent this techno-fascist ideological framework, which in my mind, lands perfectly within the vein of the total information awareness or the rise of this new right. And right, to me, it's the false hope, which at least that is kind of the approach that I take, personally,
Mhm.
is that it feels very much like manufactured false prophets to get individuals to fall back within, I think that it's a technique of corralling you, right, ideologically back into the fold of the establishment. You
Well,
won't
you
step out
look
of
at
line.
the Elon example. Like,
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The X is definitely better. I'm almost to 10,000 followers, whereas in the old days, the Dorsey days, I could barely ever get to 2,000 before I'd get nuked.
Right.
So there definitely is improvements, but if you've been paying attention, like if you're anyone like a sub probably 50,000 follower account, especially that posts anything slightly contentious whatsoever, you realize that yes, free speech is not the name of the game. That's what we're told, that this is a censorship free platform. That's clearly not the case, and the past weeks kind of been a bit of a reminder of that. And I think it's probably should be a reminder for us to keep in mind who these people are. So I know everyone's like keeps being like, "Oh no, this is what the left wants. They want to drive a wedge between MAGA and Doge," and you're
Right.
like, "For one, Doge. Let's separate Vivek and Elon. These are separate conversations." But Elon, it's like, I don't know, his connections alone freak me the fuck
Oh God.
out. Like, I'm not
Dude.
sure. Like, I don't know if he's technically considered a war profiteer. Like, I know Peter Thiel's Palantir, and that's kind of what's I believe is playing a part in like the killer drones over in Israel and shit right now.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
But I don't think that's Musk. So I don't know if Musk has if he's connected. I feel like we've talked about this before. I don't remember to what
Yeah.
degree he's tied into it. I mean, at the very least, I guess probably the
Well, Starlink for
yeah.
sure. I
I
think
mean,
that its
Starlink though,
role in
that's like
Ukraine.
internet though, so
Yeah,
it's
but it's
like
still providing,
yeah,
intelligence on the ground for military applications. So that'll,
yeah. I
right?
think the
Like,
idea is anyone can use it though. So, but yeah,
yeah, I understand that, but it's
yeah,
still like he has basically the vast majority of his contracts come straight from the Pentagon. So like that alone
yeah,
makes you a war profiteer. I mean,
yeah.
and as far as my standard is concerned, I see no difference or distinction there. And Peter Thiel, right? I mean, affecting the
Yes.
global supply chain, open AI, like all these various Carbine
Yeah.
9/11.
I had quite the rant about that on today's show because it was like I was kind of talking about how like a lot of the lefties, like especially like the Luigi Mangione lover types, they're
Right.
kind of like a little bit off kilter from what we would like. Their class theory just throws things a little bit off, and they're mostly right. This is why the Whitney, God, I can't even think of her name. The blackmail book,
Whitney Webb.
Whitney Webb's, the Jimmy Dores of the world, why they're so useful is while they
Right.
do have a slightly different class theory and where they do like they look at capitalists as the big evil. 9 times out of 10, if you're looking at the big capitalists as the evil, you're going to be correct, but it's just looking at it technically incorrect. You should be looking at it from the apparatus of coercion, like who is using coercion. But the problem is, why I'm saying why they're so often correct is because these entities are so deep in bed with government that they are basically the ones, they are working hand in hand with the coercive element. So with something like a Peter Thiel, it's like, dude, I don't know, like he's literally fashioning murder drones to kill people in Gaza. Like I don't know what more you have to do to be considered part of the enemy class, part of the coercive entity, to where we can't just go, well, it's a private entity, and he's just a business bro. This is a good old capitalist. If this was an anarcho-capitalist, a capitalist, we'd fucking say that was A-okay. No, we wouldn't. That is, he is by virtue of operating in a coercive manner, no different than the government at that point. He is essentially a de facto government. He's using force to get his way. So
yeah. No, I really don't see a distinction, especially considering his call for the U.S. State Department and the Pentagon to essentially, I mean, he legitimately tweeted, "We'll coup whoever we want," in reference to, right, these special, like, unique earth minerals like lithium and these various different minerals that are specifically, clearly valuable to Elon due to his, business interests, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I just see so many distinct connections between Elon Musk, the PayPal mafia, this new, this newly designed network that very much has all the hallmarks of intelligence and influence of intelligence. I mean, every aspect of it is influenced by the individuals like Sergey Brin who are involved in the DARPA, LifeLog project, and essentially using In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture capital firm, and their venture capital arm, to finance and fund Alphabet, right, and Google, right, just the search engine itself, which clearly has been manipulating just search results worldwide for how fucking long. You know what I'm saying? I think that in itself, when you control that level of information, as far as this is the Orwellian memory hole, right? Like that's where the Internet Archive becomes such a valuable resource, and then you wonder why it gets hacked and taken down, and information goes missing, and there's a reason for that, right? And so, like, I'm lucky as far as, like, I've been archiving every single thing I possibly can, basically because I've become ultimately paranoid, realizing how much even things that I found recently, I'll go back and look, and they're 404'd. You can't pull them up on on the Wayback Machine. It's just like, this is an information war, no doubt. Like, that is kind of this, right, fifth dimensional warfare, sort of, that is, I think, just ultimately it becomes what I like to just view Mockingbird as this umbrella term at this point, right? And I see, like, this new right, the new age right that has formed around Trump as really kind of the nexus of controlled opposition for the swing of the pendulum. And it has convinced so many people who should really just go with their natural instincts and distrust power in general, and no, despite the ideological preference, but again, they're ideologically captured. So how can they break free from that prison cell when they aren't even aware that they've been imprisoned. And so that is the age-old technique of utilizing Hollywood, the media, clearly manipulating the press. But I mean, again, it goes back to this level of manipulation that is so just unexposed to the vast majority that you just see members of my own family urging me to go watch Homeland because of how incredible that series was. And I remember when I first watched it, that first season, I watched a couple episodes, and I just immediately, my reaction was, the CIA had something to do with this plot. Like 100%. It felt like the intelligence agencies affected and manipulated this plot.
When I covered it on my morning show, I didn't even really find it that crazy initially. It wasn't until she made the statement about like there being a camp, and then like that was when I was like, okay, because honestly, like if you have some spook show, like some NCIS or whatever the fuck, some fucking 4 or 3 letter agency, TV show of some sort, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they're working hand in hand with consultants from there. And don't get me wrong, obviously there's going to be, they're partially doing it to, manage perceptions, but it also to some extent it works, because you're consulting, because you're like, this is like no different than if you were doing a horse TV show. You'd probably, have consultants that were equestrians so they can advise you on how to do X, Y, and Z. But yes, when there was the other shit, that's when I was like, oh, like when she was talking about how like, oh, this is a regular thing that they've been doing for a while now, and you're like, and that it was more than just like, it sounded like it was more than just a one-off thing for this TV show. You know what I mean?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
I discovered something in the American Journal of Economics and Sociology like a couple days ago, and I couldn't even believe this. It's in the volume 76, March issue, 2017, and it's called Reeled into Complacency: How the CIA and the Pentagon Use Hollywood to Influence Us and Shape Our Ideas and Minds. And so this was published in the American Journal of Economics and Sociology, and I pulled it up, and the table of contents shows, right, how the CIA and the Pentagon use Hollywood to shape our ideas about friends and enemies, the historical roots of CIA Hollywood propaganda, gray matters on screen, intelligence agencies, secret societies, and Hollywood movies. And this is all on, and there's far more than that, but this is all on JSTOR, the JStorage, right? That has like specifically, it's a legitimate resource that I think most people, you have to basically have access through an institution of some kind. You know what I'm saying? But if you just put in your email, then at least I gained access to like 100 free articles like a month, right? But yeah, usually I think you have to be a college student, access through your universities or your institution of some kind to gain access to the primary source documents, essentially, right? And these various books and articles that have been a lot more legitimately archived, I would say, than a lot of these public archives. And so it's been an awesome resource for certain subjects. And at this point, I kind of go there all the time just to see what I can find as well throughout the course of my research. And so I get down to like page 300 of this of this document, and in the this was specifically the secret societies and the occult influence. But then I got to what it was called was Gray Matters on Screen, Intelligence Agencies, Secret Societies, and Hollywood Movies. And it basically lays out just the premise of what we need to understand, and I felt like it was so important just as far as the perspective and the perception of reality itself, because, if you can control individuals' perception of reality, right, the level of manipulation is something that is almost incomprehensible. And I think that to break free from that, it takes so much discipline and effort that, it's beyond the pale for many people. And so what I've noticed is you can't shake people out of this, right? You personally can almost you just have to basically embrace the reality of the fact that the path is their own, right? And so they will come to these ideas, hopefully, on their own timetable. But there's really no rushing that, because inevitably, they attack and target the messenger of these ideas, unless, right, they come to them at a time where their minds are clearly have been, at the very least, right, they've been influenced enough to remain open-minded, to engage in the possibility, right, of this potential reality. And so normally, and this is by Aaron France, this one part, which I think is interesting. It says, we normally think of government agencies as acting in a purely rational and instrumental way. In the case of intelligence agencies, we presume they rely on reason and science to protect the national interest. By contrast, the general view of secret societies and occult groups is that they engage in rituals and practices that have little or nothing to do with normal social intercourse, or even with reality itself. So this shows that these common assumptions are false, and that secret societies and intelligence agencies share many important traits. Our understanding of the CIA's role in supporting the production of Hollywood movies will be enhanced by taking these similarities into account. Intelligence work and the operations of secret societies are shown to overlap in 5 categories. Religious underpinnings. I found that interesting instantly, because there's so much of a heavy footprint within, the institution, as far as like the churches as institutions have been efficiently manipulated, I would say, in many ways, in more ways than one that you can point to. And you can point to members of the Mockingbird media themselves who were agents and infiltrated the churches as institutions for that goal specifically. And the fact that that has been documented is extraordinary in itself. And it goes to show, of course.
Wasn't it Billy Graham that was brought up in the Franklin scandal, or one of his scandals?
No, actually, I was I'm very like worried about that claim that I've made about him, because I'm not saying that I only mentioned it like once or twice, but it was in the context of Eyes Wide Open and the Watergate claims of damn it, what's her name? It's slipping my mind right now.
Riken?
No. That's a legitimate, like the White House call girl is all legitimate, but I was only questioning the legitimacy of Fiona Barnett. Thank God I remembered. But anyway, so only because of William when he came on, I still haven't really gone to the level of depth necessary to kind of like corroborate, as far as like, legitimately assess whether or not I've deemed it credible myself personally. So I'm not entirely certain, but once I certainly, there are clouds of doubt in my mind, only due to William's, account of Fiona Barnett's credibility, which definitely raised questions in my mind. So that's the main reason, that because she was directly behind the claim that Nixon and Billy Graham, effectively abused her, right? And so, I'll definitely have to assess that credibility at some point at a later date. But I am definitely, I would say that I'm kind of leaning away from using her as a source until I do that. You know what I'm saying? Clearly. But it is very obvious, though, that there has been a strategic, attempt, and a successful attempt at I would say, conditioning the minds of almost every aspect of modern society, right? Whatever category you might fall into. And so even within the context of the circles that we find ourselves in, right? Whether it's the digital gulags and we're in on Twitter or these various social media platforms, which is all that's really happening. They're echo chambers for like-minded people. that's great, and I guess certain people who like to, rock the boat and spend time, with one foot in order to kind of, I would say really like there's a lot of I've noticed there's just a lot of like attention that you receive when, you're a little bit more aggressive with your approach. And I
Yeah.
understand that, man. Like people are upset, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a internal rage happening and it's being expressed in many different ways depending on kind of where you find yourself, personally. I
Real
would
quick, I want
yeah,
to let the audience know my shit just got age restricted. So do us a solid, and
right.
wherever you're watching this, make sure you throw it a like because we are getting deboosted, around the edges. So it is what it is. Whatever. I mean, I'm assuming it's happened. It happens every now and then, and it's because old JFK gets domed in that edit. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I don't know, whatever. It doesn't hit the same without it, but maybe we should get rid of that at some point. But whatever, it is what it is. Hit that like button, help a brother out. I did want to comment real quick because we are kind of like talking about like distorting message. It is funny how, and I was kind of getting at this earlier, and the idea of that, like, yes, things are better currently, like say with like say Twitter for example, but the oh god, I totally freaking lately with the messaging, I think with the whole H1B, I don't know to what extent you've been following this. I've followed it quite a bit on my morning show. That it seemed to be that he struck a chord. Between Vivek and Elon, they struck a chord with the immigration debate. I've laid out my position. If anything, I'm actually probably I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I probably would actually lean more towards Elon and Vivek's take on it. But that no longer became the issue for me when the way they were responding about it and became Elon started removing check marks, from demonetizing, removing subscriptions, removing whole accounts. He also set in place a new deboosting system to essentially that if large verified accounts, I guess, get annoyed with you, if they mute or block you, that deboosts you. I guess supposedly says it's offset by people liking you, but either way, it's still a deboosting. By its very nature, there's a deboosting influence that's occurring when you are muted or blocked by a larger verified account, which is ironic, especially because when he first kind of took over, he was pushing to get people to stop blocking. And he was actually pushing to create a negative, essentially a deboost if you're someone who blocks a bunch. So we literally could have a situation still in place. I don't know if he's changed the algo since then to where if you are a small account blocking other accounts, that gets blocked by big accounts. So you can get simultaneously deboosted for blocking people and get deboosted for being blocked by people. But it seems to be that if you're a large verified account, you seem to hit that sweet spot and blocking doesn't seem to be an issue for you. You get a perk from blocking. So essentially, if you look at the dynamics in place here, you have now created a system where essentially the big dogs now kind of control the show. Because as I explained in one of my morning shows, people have group chats, people talk, people, and typically, usually with their peers. So usually you see these 100, 200,000 follower accounts. A lot of them are in group chats with each other. And this isn't some crazy fucking conspiracy. These people are peers. They talk in group chats. They share things. And this is how then trends, go out. Mean Girls shit happens. They go, fuck this person. I don't like this person. Now they start muting them. They start blocking. You create these influence campaigns. They essentially have weighted the power to essentially the right-wing influencers. So essentially we're just getting a right-wing version of what Dorsey had before. And even then it's only like slightly center-right. Like if you're anything more than that, now you're like a racist Nazi, because that seems to be the case. So they're trying to frame essentially anyone who, has issues with their H1B thing. I've seen a lot of conflating that with the Groyper crowd and just as low level racism, and that's the only reason why they disagree with this issue.
Right. Well, I don't know. I just from day one, man. Like I said this the other day on William's show, was as soon as he hired that female from the World Economic Forum, and they said freedom of speech, not freedom of reach, and they embraced overt censorship. And I just don't. What is there to even debate when it comes to what Elon Musk represents? Because I see no difference. It's just, to me, ideologically framed for the public, right? Like, that's legitimate. It's just providing an alternative for people who did not feel represented. So the revolutionary class remains at bay, not as if there was ever a threat to begin with. Because in reality, I just, like, you see how weak the average citizen truly, seems to be, whether that's psychologically. I'm talking, it would be, I kind of saw, you remember the memes happening when it's like, when they were talking about a draft for Ukraine in World War III. And it's like, imagine an average American citizen on the front lines, brother. Like, they couldn't make it through basic training. Like, I just could, it's, we live in a society that's been pampered, and we live in a society that has embraced convenience to such an extent that they will usher in totalitarian technocracy, because it'll be easier to get your food quicker to your home. You won't have to go out and get in your car, right? It's like the matter of convenience has really become a tool for totalitarianism. And I think that, we've been conditioned to accept it all. And if we believe that, at least to a certain level, that we're being represented ideologically by this group in power, right, then more often than not, you see them defending their own servitude, right? It's like, wow, you're not only are you, not just standing in opposition against this new age digital slavery, right? Like, you're defending it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're defending elite oligarchs, bureaucrats who hate you, who despise you and your family, and only want to degrade you morally in every single way. And I think
by the way, we have a couple Rumble rants. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We have one from Joey Poopbag. Says, saw the NDS/Jay Dyer episode today, Jose. Pissed myself at your Cliff High Cucks comment. Yeah, I vaguely recall something. I did comment something in there. It was just being silly. I was just playing off the fact that everyone was accusing them of buying everything that Cliff High said. I obviously don't actually believe that. I was just being silly and fucking with them. And then also, Happy New Year, boys. It's $20 from Fire Pixie. Thanks, Boo. We love you. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for all of you who show up to this show. I guess since this is like a yearly thing, I figured maybe we should kind of, reminisce or think back on some stories, whether they're ones we were involved in ourselves. I have a couple for myself, I guess, shameless promotion, but they're also kind of just the ones that come to mind for me. This past year, I had the Ken Silva came on, and we interviewed David Gleddy. That was this year, and David Gleddy was this old Florida boy from the mid 90s to the early 2000s that was called himself an operative for the FBI, and he essentially infiltrated white supremacist groups. He did, all sorts of crazy stuff. He was part of a roller derby group that the FBI actually helped to hooked him up with, and got him part of the league, and did all sorts of different things here and there for him, all just to boost his profile. And the big thing with him is he was probably one of the most solid examples. And I don't believe Ken has found another example of this yet, but I believe he may have been the first example that we've gotten of an actual informant, asset, whatever, saying directly, that they essentially created one of these, neo-Nazi events, and at the direction of the FBI. Because usually it's like they may get somebody to do it, one of their assets, and an informant, or they'll get somebody else, another degree separated to do it. And even then it'll be this like, oh, well, I did that on my own accord. That wasn't because of the FBI. No, Gleddy straight up admitted it. And I believe later in court, it also was admitted. So that's like the big piece there. So that's one of the, because I mean, there was always the, oh, we've never been caught, setting up any of these events, blah, blah, blah. No, David Gleddy is direct evidence contrary to that. He said it in no uncertain terms that, nope, that is 100% what the FBI was doing. They were doing it flagrantly. They were telling him to do it. He's kind of one of those guys that said a lot of the quiet parts out loud. You almost want to hate him at some points, but he's just too damn lovable because he's literally just kind of a redneck Florida cracker boy who got paid by the FBI to have fun and essentially do blow with white supremacists and rollerblade and do all sorts of cool like Point Break shit and just fucking enjoy life as like a 20-something-year-old dude just pumped full of testosterone.
Right.
It's actually kind of awesome if you think about it. I mean, some of the stuff he did was pretty fucked up. Like he was literally setting up like neo-Nazi groups while doing blow with them and like convincing them to rob fucking drug dealers only to set them up. But the whole time he's having a blast fucking doing blow and just fucking partying with these guys, but then talking them into doing illegal shit. Pretty fucking deplorable behavior, but boy, if that's not a wild time. So I just thought it'd be fun to kind of to reminisce on that one. I have another. I don't know if there's any that come to mind for you, whether they're episodes you covered or stories of this year. We've had a pretty crazy year. I didn't know if there's any that come to mind. The first that come to mind for you. I mean, we got assassination attempts. We got a fucking erectile dysfunction, blue beam. Like we got all sorts of shit. So I don't know if anything you got.
Dude, honestly, just personally, I think having Nick Bryant on was super surreal for me. Like that I absolutely love that experience. But yeah, as far as like specific stories over this year, man, this year's been a fucking whirlwind, buddy. Like it honestly has been like one thing to the next in so many ways. But I think that truly what I appreciate the most is just kind of like this newfound intellect, like this realization that I think the veil is truly falling to the wayside, and I'm beginning to understand certain concepts that I never in my life would have even considered, before. Just the research that I basically individually pursued throughout the course of this year alone, right? So I think that the clandestine nature of, this sadistic veil of propaganda, you know what I mean? It's like, it has legitimately created such a dysfunctional society that the framework, the system in place, right, is just like not even, I don't even think that we're like armed with the tools, at least the vast majority, to approach this process in the right way, to even understand, like I said before, I was getting to the point that, until we understand our common enemy, how do we even begin to defend ourselves, right? And so like, that's what I'm obsessively passionate about at this moment, is attempting to truly, conceptualize the ideological framework that our enemies are basing their lives and foundational perspectives on, like that way, maybe I'll begin to come up with certain answers that, they're never going to excuse any sort of right. Anyway, what do you got? You want to show something?
If you want to play it, you can. It was just from our Gleddy one.
I'm on mute. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's, Uncle Ted, in the chat. Happy New Year's to everyone here.
And we hope y'all had a Merry Christmas, because we weren't here last week.
By the way, Great Pill here, old Jules, is going to be on the show in the morning.
Yes,
on the morning show tomorrow. Mo says, just got a warning for graphic content when I clicked on the stream. Yes, that's what I was saying a minute ago. We got that. So do me a solid, and wherever you're watching, like it everywhere it goes out. This goes out on my YouTube channel, my Rumble, and it also goes out on Austin's YouTube as well. So boost all of those where you can. Help give a nigga a break. Fucking hook us up. But yeah, so that is what it is. That's we're getting our reach tampered down there. So oh well. But sorry, yeah, we can play that if you want to. This jog the memory of the audience. Go ahead and play. It's only a minute long. I'm not sure which clip
I was trying to find
is.
something earlier. I didn't even think to type his name into
One of my family knew. So when I got exposed, it was a big deal for a little while. I'm all over the news, CNN, my hometown newspaper. It was a big deal because at the time, the FBI, just before that, was having me put on Nazi protests. And there was Nazi protests going on across the country that were handled by the FBI and operatives like myself. And that when I took this step out there, because I had to get the permits in my name, if you check the records, the permits for the Orlando, Florida Nazi protest in 2005 was in my name. And I was all over the newspaper, and people that knew me was like, oh my God, what happened to David Galletti? I used to go out with him in high school. You know, my mom's like, David, what the happened to you? I just saw the newspaper, you're having a Nazi protest. I didn't raise you like that. And I was all in. That was the first time, you know, when you get your picture in the newspaper as a Nazi and you're having a Nazi protest, you're all in. I had events at my home that I still live in. I have 2 homes.
Yeah, wild episode. Yeah.
I was just, as far as like, it's interesting to me that we have so many different modern examples of kind of like what seem to be obviously, you know, execution style assassinations on individuals who had evidence to expose the interworkings of the intelligence community, and especially certain operations. And you know, what I think, like I mentioned, I had found this article on JSTOR, and it was basically pointing to specific examples of modern Hollywood influence by intelligence agencies, right?
Real quick, put in your chat what your favorite story or the biggest story of the year. That way we can fucking see, generate some ideas. But go on, Austin. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, that would be nice. But yeah. So this screenwriter named Gary DeVore, he was apparently murdered in 1997. All right. And this was allegedly over the script, The Big Steal, which disappeared without a trace from the vehicle from which his body was recovered. If the film had been produced, it would have exposed CIA actions in Panama at the time. Now, the case has been made that this 1989 invasion by United States forces could have also been an attempt at covering up for a bank robbery that was intended to recover sex tapes owned by Manuel Noriega that had captured high-ranking United States military or intelligence personnel in compromising positions. And it's this DeVore, this screenwriter, his widow has said that her husband traveled to Panama with CIA-affiliated men, DeGraff and O'Hare, and that could have given him access to credible information in support of his alternative explanation of the United States invasion of Panama in 1989. And so it was argued that the CIA definitely had a motive to silence him, and that notes that the autopsy revealed that the hand bones found in DeVore's vehicle were those of a 200-year-old man. And so the presumed reason for that was that the removal of his hands was done as a symbol. It was a sign, as well as, you know, aiding and helping to avoid correct identification of the body. But it was also a message to other writers at the time, screenwriters and different individuals involved with the agency, to steer clear of any certain taboo subjects, right? And so it's, to me, it's very clear, you know, the public image aspect of the intelligence community and how they sort of manipulate the framework that we're dealing with, and obviously, like, covering Laurel Canyon was something that I think is like extremely important, basically because of Lookout Mountain Laboratory and the fact that it proved that there were over 19,000 classified films, right, produced at this facility, and involved like the most prominent, celebrities at the time. We're talking John Ford. Was clearly the director. John Ford was a member of Mockingbird, and he was filming at Lookout Mountain Laboratory, right? And had Jimmy Stewart, Howard Hawks, Ronald Reagan, Bing Crosby, Walt Disney, Marilyn Monroe. They all had clearance to work at the facility on undisclosed projects, and that just goes to show. I mean, of course, that's an older example, but I truly like when you point out this 1997 example, it becomes like, honestly, The Fugitive, Homeland, they were all direct results of this individual who was involved, directly named Chase Brandon, I believe was his name, and he was allegedly given the task of providing a makeover for the CIA in Hollywood. And so this is kind of the, Frank Wisner of the day, right? As far as like his role in the original Operation Mockingbird. But it's very interesting because it's clear that it's far more than just, an advisor on set suggesting ideas for the plot. Like, it is so much more than that. They're manufacturing films, they're manufacturing television series, like you said, Spook Camp or Spy Camp or whatever it was. I read this this article about Homeland Declassified or whatever they claimed, and they legitimately were talking about how they were at a dinner, right? The creators of Homeland, they were at this dinner with the Obamas, and then Levin, who's one of the creators, was there was this meeting arranged, and that was when they were sitting at Langley in the CIA headquarters with John Brennan and 50 other CIA agents. And John Brennan, who was running the CIA at the time, right? Remember, brought slavery back to Libya with deliberately targeting Omar Gaddafi and yeah, and under the Obama administration, but yeah, and of course was used as that right, that talking head during Russiagate, which was absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, so he's running the CIA at the time, and he comes out in the middle of the room and says, "I don't know what your show is, but I know it matters to my people." This is what he tells them, allegedly. And I thought it was funny though, because apparently they all talked about how similar their professions were, and the agents were saying that it clearly it takes a lot of acting and storytelling with feigned intimacy, they said, which I kind of thought was funny. But yeah, so this this Chase Brandon, he was, like I said, he was concerned that clearly he needed to revamp the image of the CIA post Cold War in Hollywood, right? And so this was the project that he was given, and so he was to quietly set up this as far as like he was to become this official entertainment liaison and set up an office for that specific purpose in Hollywood, and send veteran operatives in order to infiltrate the rest of the industry, which is ridiculous. But this all was constructed in 96. And according to this, so Brandon was a career agent, having spent 25 years in the agency's elite clandestine service as an undercover covert operations officer, carrying out foreign assignments involving international terrorism, counterinsurgency, global narcotics trafficking, and weapons smuggling. He was also an agency foreign political affairs analyst, presidential debriefer, and an instructor in tactical, paramilitary, and espionage tradecraft disciplines at secret CIA training camps. So this is the guy who set up the modern, version of Mockingbird in Hollywood, and so presumably Brandon was picked to head the Hollywood office because of this experience with psychological warfare operations, and he is also the first cousin of Hollywood star Tommy Lee Jones. Motherfucker, I was like, what? I'm reading through this article, and I cannot believe how many other examples there are. And again, you can point to numerous films, but this entertainment liaison office between the CIA and the Pentagon offers filmmakers not only advice and expertise, but again, they are legitimately providing agents themselves to manufacture these films, right? Television series. And so it gets even more strange because apparently if a movie or TV show wants to film at Langley or have on-set advisors, the CIA is, of course, more than happy to oblige, and this happens consistently. And so there's, of course, only one caveat. The CIA must approve the script personally. So, again, you just have this nexus clearly established. And so, yeah. There was it allowed for the CIA to craft this message and tone of the agency's portrayal. And when Brandon took over in the late 1990s, he helped foster two influential pro-CIA productions: the 1999 Showtime movie In the Company of Spies, and the 2001 to 2003 CBS television show The Agency. And so Chase Brandon's involvement in these productions was unprecedented for the time and set the new standard for the CIA and Hollywood. In the Company of Spies, screenwriter Roger Towne visited Langley and spent over a year developing and reworking the script alongside the CIA's Public Affairs Office. Towne also worked directly with Brandon, who was also on set to offer his advice and expertise. I also found it interesting that this was all simultaneously occurring with the 9/11, clearly, right? And then also you have to account for the rise in international terrorism and this whole, right? I mean, really, that was what Homeland was so successful at doing, beyond the fact. So this is predictive programming, right? Which so very obviously a tool of the intelligence community. But when you're seeding the narrative for Hellfire drones, Hellfire missiles and drone capability that was not yet publicly acknowledged, right? And they legitimately use that term, Hellfire missile predator drone, in a television series promoted by Chase Brandon, who's this directly involved in psychological operations in every way, running this program, this liaison office between the Pentagon, the CIA, and Hollywood. I mean, it goes to show, man, like, why would we at all be surprised that Claire Danes is sitting there saying that they were sent to a spy camp? Mm-hmm. Like, why? Yeah. It just, to me, man, like, it really was like I kind of took a lap personally, internally, only because I was like, my knee-jerk reaction to it in the moment. I was very proud of that.
Well, all right, anyway. Let's change gears, get over to the call-in portion of the show. Also want to go over, you guys in the chat dropped a few more, and there was actually one that I happen to have a tweet that I saved for the Maui fire, so maybe we can go through that in a second. But I do remind you guys real quick that today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Nadeau Shave Co. If you're tired of that razor burn, irritation, those ingrown hairs that you can get from those deep penetrating multi-blade cartridges, then this is the way to go. You can shave just like your grandpa used to, whether you're shaving your entire face or just edging up your beard. The single blades give you a barber-grade shave for a fraction of the price. The standard issue includes one traditional safety razor and a box of 100 stainless steel razor blades. That's $75 a shave for the entire year. Let's be real, it's probably going to last you a lot longer than that. But if you are someone who shaves every single day, then you may want to consider the Quarter Shave Club, because the normal is probably not going to cut it for you. That puts you at about 25 cents per replacement blade. He's also got shave soaps, 3-in-1 body, hair, and face soap as well. Great stuff, feels great, smells great. It's a COVID mandate refusing company. This company was born out of refusing the mandate. Use code Jose for 10% off your entire order at NadeauShaveCo.com. All right, let's go ahead and get into the call-in portion of the show. do want to remind you guys, this is the number. Call in at 941-281-5857. If you are patrons of me or Austin, then you can just do the video call in. You can be a talking head alongside me and Austin and shoot the shit with us in the video call. And it's just for $2 a month. Or I think $3 over at Austin's, unless he changed it. I don't know. But the lowest one, I'm not sure. Yeah, and then let's go through some chats. Got Uncle Ted today wishes CIA would do their job, make cocaine great again. See, Infected Ghost saying, this is my new favorite. I love how they carry on David McGowan's legacy. This is referring to us. Thank you. Hell yeah, dude. Yeah. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else. I see Maui. Everyone's saying, sucking up to us, saying how awesome we are. Jay-Z catching heat is crazy to me. Is it for show or an organic event? I would say probably both if I had to guess. We have someone said you guys being 6 months ahead of everyone. The Diddy topic was pretty rad. Yes, baby boy, we got our fingers on the pulse. But Maui, that is the one. Huh?
I won't derail you, but I just found out. It was a while back, but I found out about these special interest groups that Diddy was involved with, leading up to the exposure. And it's very interesting to factor into all of this as far as why he would be hung out to dry like that. It's strange. We'll have to get into it. I'll dig deeper and I'll bring it to the table
for sure. Here's on the Maui front. This is I had this saved from like a month ago. I kept meaning to bring it up in the morning dump. I never did. So this is about a month old. Breaking. So a month old. You're not gonna believe this is from Mindy Robinson. She did probably one of the better Vegas or only maybe documentaries. I'm not sure. She had a lot of the good footage on there, I believe. It says, you're not going to believe this. Yes, you are. But the incident commander for the Maui fires was just picked up for graping, I have to use that word, a 12-year-old child. And we already know what kind of blackmail the deep state uses to control people. So that there's that piece of the puzzle. Speaking of, is the public just never going to get answers on why they shut off the hydrants, never used their warning siren system, and sent people in the wrong direction to die on purpose? Keep in mind, this is the fire chief. The police chief was the one that got a lofty raise for moving there after being the incident commander for the Las Vegas shooting cover-up. And the sheriff that was in charge of that same shooting is now magically Nevada's governor, somehow despite being hated even by his own party. Gee, you'd almost think this out-of-control, corrupt government coordinates all of these suspicious things on purpose or something. Here is a TikTok video. It's about 50 seconds. Let's watch this real quick and see if there's anything interesting here.
And that breaking news, new details in the indictment of a Maui fire chief charged with sex assault and continuous sexual assault of a minor. The new court documents say Battalion Chief Sean Rogers began abusing the victim in 2019 when she was about 12 years old, and the alleged assaults continued for about 2.5 years. Rogers, who is 52 years old, turned himself in today after a warrant was issued for his arrest last week. Rogers is a 25-year veteran of the Department of Fire and Public Safety and was the incident commander during the August wildfires. Today, MFD Chief Brad Ventura said in a statement, "We are deeply concerned about the allegations. Mr. Rogers is not scheduled to work this week, and we will continue to evaluate this situation as more information is available."
All right, weird stuff. Obviously, that's completely just a coincidence. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but weird. Weird nonetheless. Weird for sure. Yeah. By the way, I just realized you have more live watchers over on your channel than I do right now. So hell yeah, dude! You're coming up. You're beating me. You need to make this a competition every time. Yeah, hell yeah, dude. But yeah, that is weird stuff going on in Maui. I know a lot of people have brought up the point that it was the same commander, the police commander was the same one from Vegas, so that's weird.
Yeah,
I don't know if you ever went down the Maui rabbit hole or not. I never really got too much into it.
Right. Yeah. No, I haven't gotten like very deep into any sort of evidentiary like details of like any sort of like corrupt foul play. As far, it's very obvious to me that it's not the official narrative of how it happened, and it clearly always there is. Especially in an area such as that, I'm much more along as far as like I'm much more likely to buy the plausibility of a land grab, like some sort of elite, bureaucratic land grab, and as far as like at the very least, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? And so, to me, I think that weather manipulation is always a factor. I mean, I'm very. I was just talking to a buddy that's been on the show actually, who's one of the patrons, and he was discussing how this nationwide fog is very strange,
He's been
right?
on my
And
show?
no, he's been on our show. Is what I'm saying. He's a patron of mine. And he's been on
I
our
know
show
you.
like a
I
couple
think I know who you're
times.
talking about. We
Yeah,
talk
he's
on
cool as
Instagram a
hell.
lot. Yeah, he's cool. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, he had mentioned something about this all these different news headlines about this nationwide fog effect that's happening, and yeah, it's strange. And we know the level of manipulation as far as DARPA and HARP and all the different things they're capable of technologically, and yeah, it's mind-boggling. So yeah, and I definitely am under the impression that it was very, very much a contrived event that occurred in Maui. I'm definitely always going to be under the impression that it was exploited, right? And for their benefit specifically. But yeah, beyond that, I don't have any real details beside the fact that there's a strong intelligence connection to Hawaii in general. And so it makes sense.
Well, I guess
things
we
like
can
that.
move on to another yearly story. I'll give another one of mine, I guess. Maybe I'll think of other ones. I had I believe it was this year that we broke. I mean, obviously it was me kind of, it was once again Ken and BX this time that kind of broke it. But I was, kind of assisting with that initial push of it getting out there with the 764 Kyle Spitz connection. And we did a few of those. So that was kind of that was a dark turn this year, but it was a interesting turn and worthwhile. I think I was telling you before the show, I don't know if it was while we record, I also have on Thursday, I have coming on an individual named Chicken Broth who has been producing, he kind of makes a, well-produced stuff online. He's got a newer YouTube channel, but really, he's done some really good, quite a bit of views on some of the videos he has out because they're nicely produced stuff. And he's covered I believe he did one episode on the Kyle Spitz one, and then he did a more in-depth, hour-long one that was on Josh Sutter and the Temple of Blood stuff, and then also kind of connects that into 09A, 764, that sort of stuff. So he's kind of covering. So I'm going to have him on. We're going to talk about all those things, but that kind of connects back to this story when we had that first initial push when that stuff was the first break. I'm not sure if BX is technically the first one to break it or anything, but it definitely was, giving that story its initial push from all the different areas it was coming from. So that was an interesting time, that period of time. It also kind of introduced me to new dynamic of this spooky world that we're in. Yeah, the where the nodes of neo-Nazism, Satanism, and federal agents seem to mingle, that realm.
Oh yeah. It's that that middle ground between bridging the gap between public and private, the exploitation, right, of that, and I think that that's never been more obvious as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I don't know. It just, when it boils down to ultimately this nexus of manipulation, right? And I think that once you're aware that all these nonprofits, these non-governmental organizations are very clearly, infiltrated by, if not entirely created out of whole cloth by the intelligence agencies in order to use as some proxy force in some regime change operation, right, some coup d'etat and some international crisis, and it's always these NGOs that are surrounding these international crises, like I like using that example of the white helmets in Syria because it's just such a perfect example of Assad's using sarin gas on his own people. Oh my God, we need to use this as a pretext to invade and stage a regime change. And it's like this age-old pattern that I saw a tweet recently that said pattern recognition is a superpower. And I've never felt that more in my life. Like, honestly, it feels like a superpower, right? Like you aren't as easily manipulated and vulnerable to the false narratives, right? Like you just remain skeptical. You balk at it all. And that's very healthy. I think that's just the way you should approach this. Otherwise, you're running a very high risk. And I see that in my daily life with people I love and I know are good people and they have good intentions, but my God, they're captured by their ideological preference and the two-party, paradigm, this part, they don't understand. This is a bipartisan agenda. The pendulum swings, right? But it only swings to accomplish what the other side cannot. And that's what I consistently believe. I don't see how I'm proven wrong when in regard to that, as far as what did it take? Trump accomplished more gun control legislation than Obama could even dream of. And I think that is something worth pointing out, man.
And I think this was kind of a point I was trying to make. I believe it was on by today's morning stream, is that a lot of people look at Doge, and this was the idea. A lot of people are like, oh, a lot of people are getting all upset. They're like, oh, why is everyone shitting on Elon right now? It's like we don't want to. We're going to cause a schism between MAGA and Doge, and you're like, well, I don't know if necessarily. Obviously, this isn't the exact same dynamic, but it's very similar. I obviously use that exact kind of example of like, how does this actually play out when you get your supposed, like, obviously, like if we put Trump and Kamala on literal just paper, their stances, you might be like, I slightly prefer Trump's, but that's not how that works. It doesn't play out in reality. That doesn't mean that those things he supposedly stands for or claims to stand for are what actually end up happening in practice. What you end up getting is a very different beast. And a lot of times it actually is kind of counterintuitive and does the opposite. And I think we very well may get a similar thing with Doge. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if all of the ambitious things that they've murmured about, they were like, oh my God, they want to cut this agency, that agency, just doesn't fucking happen. But they're able to get their pet projects in and get their hooks for their like techno bro bullshit that ends up to things being worse, and in a sense is actually a more of a entity for a negative things and ends up being for good, right. So, which, I mean, I might be wrong, but it seems that to be the case. I also did want to bring up this chat real quick. I thought it was interesting in light of kind of like our Mockingbird type stuff earlier. This is Infected Go. He says, worked in news, such films, such TV spooks everywhere. You've seen those montage news stations all over U.S. repeating same story verbatim. That script comes from the AP, and CYA writes those in press release. So AP is Associated Press. I don't know what CYA is. So yeah, it sounds like they're just saying that literally just comes straight from the AP, and then they just kind of distribute it, and it's just that's what everyone just goes with.
Right. Yeah, my favorite is the presumption of an AI government, being like a more legitimate alternative, and like people actually running with that narrative as a viable, right? And that's all by design as well. That's the means of plausible deniability. Oh, well, it's the algorithmic overlord. Sorry, guys, it's not us. Don't be mad at us. We're just the political class. In reality, they're clearly just the front men for the bureaucratic oligarchs, the elite oligarchs pulling the strings. We can point to the families. We know the names. Go listen to the Pilgrim Society episode. Tell me every single one of those names isn't the most deeply involved in every facet of modern society and the way that, right, we function as the world empire, right? It's hilarious. And I mean, it's tragic at the same time, but it's still like what I recently just, well, first of all, like with Elon, I mean, with this sort of new technocratic new right that we've been talking about a little bit that kind of surrounds Trump's sort of, well, guess what? Deep connections to Robert Maxwell. I discovered this insane article. I'll have to send this picture right now. But of Robert Maxwell and Donald Trump in the late 80s. And I was just like, whoa, it was very interesting. It draws a much different perspective as far as because I always knew about the statement made by, I think it was the Rothschilds. It was one of the Rothschilds, I believe, but it might have been a Rockefeller. I'm trying to remember which one came up with this phrase, which when they provided the bailout to Trump and in the 80s, and they said that his name was more valuable to them alive than dead, meaning valuable as far as like in the marketplace. So if he went bankrupt, it would be less valuable to them in essence. And well, that's exactly what they were saying. And I also found it interesting. Trump, this old ass interview of him and this lady, and this this journalist asked him. She asked him, "What would you do? What would your first course of action be if you went bankrupt?" And he stops for a moment and barely bats an eye, and he looks right back at her and he says, "Probably run for president." I just thought it was so perfect, especially because of what I have just discovered by this. This is a crazy book that I found, and it's called it's by Michael Collins Piper, right? Which he has a strange death, but this book is called The New Jerusalem. This author died at like 49, I believe. The New Jerusalem, Zionist Power in America by Michael Collins Piper. And it is very interesting because there's a whole chapter dedicated to who towers behind Trump and the strange story of that. And it goes into essentially these very elite special interest groups connected to the Meyer Lansky syndicate of this kind of criminally structured, what basically post-war, right? Post-World War I, but really post-World War II kind of established itself much more as far as the post-World War II Rat Lines Gladio network. It was much more consolidated and established, during the post-World War II years, I would say. There was much more of a strong presence that you can, clearly point to. But it was more along, I would say like there wasn't as much significant power being held by, this global dominative, clearly like what ultimately becomes, this globalist framework that we've been discussing before, right? But it was in its infancy in a certain sort of way because clearly the empire wasn't as efficiently consolidated, as I said, and really there was a lot more of an individualist streak within right the structure of the foundation of society itself, right? There was still a lot of people, especially American citizens at the time, who weren't quite as ideologically captured into this nationalist vein, right, of kind of how we perceive politics in general. But so this book itself, it really paints a different picture as far as the rise of Trump to these powerful positions at this very moment. And essentially it outlines this gambling operation and it starts to get very interesting. It's called Resorts International. And basically, Trump in 1987 bought his first casino interests when he purchased 93% of the voting stock in the Resorts International gambling concern. And so, essentially, the Spotlight magazine, Andrew St. George reported this on October 30th, 1978. And it was also in a previous issue in September, but that Resorts International was established and controlled by front men for the Rockefeller and Rothschild families and their enforcers in the CIA and its allied intelligence agency, Israel's Mossad. And so this is where it starts getting interesting to me, especially considering this very strange direct connection to Robert Maxwell, which we already all know his connection to Ghislaine and Epstein, but this connection to Robert Maxwell, this one really, gave me pause, right? And so I'm going to pull up this picture and I'm going to send it to Jules. But actually, let me go take a piss.
You should be able to just share it right there. You have God rights.
Let me take a piss.
Okay. Did he? Does
I really want to talk about this real quick, but honestly, I have to go to the bathroom. So
we gotta. This works out perfectly.
There we go. All right, I'll be right back.
What's up, dude? You came just in time to bail out Austin so you could take a leak. What's up, dude?
I'm like Beetlejuice. I was summoned earlier, so I was like, oh man, I got to sign in quick.
Hell yeah,
get away
dude.
from
What's
dinner.
up? Real quick before you start, I did want to point out. Here's one more of these good stories of the year, or I guess not good, big stories of the year. Best news of the entire year is how much spotlight Israel has put on itself. Beware of the evil eye of Sauron. The world is finally watching now. Yeah, I mean, while it is negative, there's been a lot of bad shit going on in Gaza. I do think they have crossed the Rubicon of no longer being able to be, oh, we're big, sad, big, scared, oh no, everyone's gonna kill us. Like, I'm sorry, that's not gonna fly anymore. So I think the impression of Israel's changed, and I think that'll be a good thing going forward. But it's rough right now. But anyways, go on, bud. What's up?
Oh no, I just want to say Happy New Year. Love the show.
Happy
love
New
y'all.
Year.
It's been a great year. For anybody reeling after last week's Twitter stuff, there's a Malcolm X quote pursuant to our kind of ongoing discussion offline. There's no state of being any lower than racial self-loathing, he said at the Queen's Court when he gave a speech there. And so anybody who works in tech, don't hate yourself. Just, knows the grindstone.
It's okay if you're a Pajit. I don't hate you for being a Pajit. It's the Pajit inside that you must kill, essentially.
Of all of us. And then also just to let you know, I've been holding off on coming on talking about Malcolm X because the Sadiq family lawsuit is developing in, I saw a magic name in Discovery when I was looking into it.
Okay.
Of John Ali. That name's going to feature prominently. He was Malcolm's only enemy within the Nation of Islam, who he said was an enemy. John Ali claimed he was not a Fed, but that he just had an interview with the FBI. And the family's asked specifically about him with regard to their father's assassination. So that truth will come. So ain't no need for me to bother you there. So I just wanted to say Happy New Year.
I see you're holding off. By the way, me and have been talking about him coming on to cover Malcolm X's death at some point. So it sounds to me like there's developing information, so we're holding off.
Last week I was at kind of a normie festival and I was trying to shill for you guys, and I met one of the national heads of Blexit, and I was kind of open with him. I was like, I'm a little fearful for Candace, because if you look through Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, even Martin Luther King and his people in his orbit, like these influential black leaders, they start calling them anti-Semites and then they end up shot. So
it
makes you worry about our current day.
Maybe Alan Dershowitz will be able to take care of that anti-Semitism.
It's like, you hate Jews, and it's like, okay, and then you're like, oh crap, that doesn't work.
So crazy.
And for me, for the year, that's been the lesson. So thank you, Mr. Galison. People say things, and you just say, okay, and like that.
Exactly. Who gives a shit?
That's been brilliant. So y'all have a great one. Happy New Year.
You too. Appreciate you coming on, bud. It sounded. I'm gonna kick Jules off. What did you want to tell me? There was something. What were you just talking about a second? There was something. Ooh, Dershowitz. I guess that'd probably be the good thing to end the show on, was probably Dersh. You said there was some new Dersh info. I covered him recently. I don't know if you saw. Trump wants to make him King Jew, or something like that. I forget. Like King of Don't Be Mean to Jews, or something. No, seriously, it is like something about like anti-Semitism task force or some shit. And I went through the Virginia Giuffre accusations and the other individual who made accusations against him. Obviously he's attacked these people litigiously, and so he's able to say technically that nothing's legit. So this is why he's always very, very, very litigious about the details of that. Yeah.
When Alexander Acosta gave Epstein that sweetheart deal, he was one of the unnamed perpetrators who was protected as a co-conspirator under that sweetheart deal given by Acosta, who later was appointed into the Trump administration and gave us the beautiful line, I was told to back off Epstein because he's protected by intelligence, right? But
by the way, real quick, Hammer says Nation of Islam was Operation Gladio. You're correct, buddy boy. I definitely think there was a Nation of Islam glowiness going on. Sorry, go on.
Gladio. They were stoking not only domestic terrorism, but they were seeding the international terrorism agenda as well. And that included the Islamic terrorism, of course, as a fundamental, cog in that framework of propaganda. And, that's why you can point to like the World Trade Center bombing in 93 as a perfect example of the CIA launching a false flag attack to seed that very narrative around the same exact time, which I realized rewatching Die Hard during Christmas. I realized that whole fucking narrative, maybe it was Die Hard 2. That was the one in 95, right? Wasn't it?
I don't remember when they came out.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure. But it was 95. It was the same year as the OKC bombing. And that was the one where the Hans is from the first movie, his brother was all pissed off or something and was like had planted bombs all over the city, right? And like in elementary schools and like at a subway station. And like it goes to show, right? It's exactly what we were just discussing, which is kind of that the seeding of these sort of like what becomes, it's the shaping of our ideas, but it's also the shaping of pop culture, which inevitably shapes culture in general, right? And so when they say, politics is downstream from culture, well, yes, but who's controlling the manufactured culture, right? And it's like, well, to me, that tends to be, right, this exactly what we discuss every single week, essentially, right? Which is this clandestine, covert operational standpoint of how do we consistently exploit pop culture, preferences for our own benefit. And that is why I think that you see so many talentless celebrities, just gifted these false personalities and fake personas and, move culture in a destructive way, right? That only inevitably just sort of degrades our sense of morality.
I think the powers, the media apparatus that is running into a rude awakening in many different regards in having to deal with authenticity now. This kind of plays into the talk where recently part of all this stuff about the Elon talk really did start with him getting ratioed and getting shit on by people and him spiraling. There became this narrative of, there's these bots, it seems artificial. No, this seemed organic. And I think we're seeing this in other regards as well when it comes to pushing back against the powers that be. Oh, crap, I totally forgot where I was threading this needle to. I had some sort of connection to all of that. Damn it, I totally forgot where I was taking. I had a good point. I had a really fucking good point. Damn it, that's going to bug me. It'll come to me later. What was I threading there? Oh, whatever. We'll come back to it later. What was the new information about Dersh? Was it just that he was named in that? Damn it! I had a point, and then I just came to one point of it and just.
I just sent a tweet. It's like a minute video. Oh God! I just sent a tweet. It's like a minute video on to the production DMs. On Twitter.
I remember. I was going to connect it to. I was connecting it to. I don't know what we were just talking about, but it reminded me of recently on Daily Wire, and so I think we're going to see this too with some of our quote unquote our influencers. There was recently on Daily Wire. There was that Brett Cooper chick who lost her show or whatever. She got a new one. They swapped her out with her producer. And the biggest thing people complained about was it was basically like a carbon copy of each other. And it literally, like, if you watch the show next to each other, it's like literally like she's trying to do the exact same thing. So it's like this inauthentic thing. It's like, Daily Wire fired someone. They just try to swap one for one, almost as if like a person's just like an economic like unit. Oh, we'll just swap a unit. That's all you're doing.
This is so funny to me.
So those are the threads I was connecting together. There was that like there's like a level of inauthenticity where that now we're having to deal with this, and people are able to tell if it just are getting better at sniffing things out, and so they're demanding more, and so they're struggling to figure out how to manage this going forward. Because even with somebody like this Musk thing, they're having to put in controls because oh shit, now they're snapping back against me. You know what I mean? Like me.
Right.
But go on. Sorry.
No, I just thought that this video that I just sent to Jules is so funny because, like, this is Dershowitz using this as a sort of excuse. Like, well, clearly I was dealing with Epstein in the most professional of circumstances because I was introduced to him by Lady Rothschild. Which is just, again, it fits perfectly within the context of what I was just discussing as far as Trump's connections with Resorts International, directly to Robert Maxwell, which inevitably, clearly, we know Dershowitz and his connections to the Epstein network, not only being a perpetrator, but clearly being involved at the level of, like legitimately. He put it in the terms of, which I found this was very strange. This was in I think the New Yorker. But yeah, he likes to say that he met Jeffrey Epstein through his friend Lady Rothschild, Lynn Forrester, right? And in 1996, she had suggested that he would enjoy getting to know Epstein, an interesting autodidact. Epstein, who had grown up in Coney Island and dropped out of college, was an unimposing person, apparently, described by one friend as shy, weird, introverted. This is the New Yorker article. But it's crazy to me because he inevitably says that Epstein flew to Martha's Vineyard and visited Dershowitz, bringing a bottle of champagne. The two men found common interests. Dershowitz later recalled, "We talked about science. We talked about academia. We talked about Harvard." Epstein, like Dershowitz, had come from a humble background, they say. And but this is, of course, when...
I don't believe for a second Dershowitz came from a humble
absolutely
background.
Absolutely not. No.
Epstein, maybe. I don't know.
Sort of,
yeah.
but yeah, it's interesting because in the 70s, Dershowitz had been a trader and a wealth manager at Bear Stearns before leaving to start his own small firm. You don't leave Bear Stearns and start a small firm. But in the late 80s, he was hired as a financial advisor by the man he described as his mentor. And so Leslie Wexner, this is with Epstein, of course, the founder and chairman of L Brands, a consortium of retail companies that include Victoria's Secret. Epstein has said that he refused to accept clients, of course, with less than $1 billion in assets, but Wexner has been the only client he ever named. But in New York, Epstein lived in one of the city's largest private homes, and we all know that he liked to, kind of flaunt and brag about the fact that he got the mansion from Wexner for only $1. But because Wexner bought the building, I guess, in 1989. And then it was like within 7 years when Epstein had taken up residence there. But so Epstein used his mansion to establish a salon for scientists, according to Dershowitz. And he said basically that Epstein acquired scientists, which to me sounded like he was compromising them, right? Which I kind of thought was very interesting, that he put it in the terms of he liked to collect them.
I wonder if he had them date his former girlfriends, which is exactly what he did with Kimball Musk, Elon Musk's brother. And it's a very common through line with this Epstein fella, that all these powerful, influential people just happen to always date ex-girlfriends of Epstein that tend to live in similar areas, and I don't know, it just almost seems like kind of a built-in, easy, ready-to-go influence network. I don't know. Just seems like it to me.
Yeah, and apparently in September 96, Epstein invited Dershowitz to meet Leslie Wexner, and he was, I guess, throwing a party for his 59th birthday. So they flew together to New Albany, Ohio, where Wexner had this 300-acre estate with a Georgian mansion for himself and a large house for Epstein. So the guests, Dershowitz says, included John Glenn, the senator and former astronaut, and the former Israeli prime minister, Shimon Peres. And Dershowitz quickly assessed his role. I was Jeffrey Epstein's intellectual gift to Leslie Wexner. That's what he says. And that's in the New Yorker, right? I just found that very fucking strange, man, but it makes a lot of sense. Play this video, though, because I think
can't
it's
believe
so
I don't know
funny.
the answer to this question, but I don't. Do you still represent you know, him, and when did you stop representing him, Epstein?
No, I stopped representing him when the deal was made, and I haven't seen him in years. And, you know, if his lawyers call me and ask me a question about the deal, of course, as a lawyer, I have to answer that question. Look, I was introduced to him by the Lady Rothschild. The people he hung out with at the time were the president of Harvard, the provost of Harvard.
Yeah,
my relationship with him was academic. We went to conferences. We had seminars in his office. None of us had any inkling that he had this other life. And as soon as we learned about it, obviously, all of us ended any kind of a social relationship. I then became his lawyer. I'm proud of the fact that I represented him. I represented a lot of controversial people, and we got a deal. Some people criticize the deal, but you can't criticize the defense attorney for trying to get the best deal possible. But I want to categorically against it. I never met this woman. She made it up completely. I will continue to say that till the day I die. And when I die,
off now.
My children will continue to say it. It's a total categorical lie.
All right. Yeah, we can go ahead and say he's probably full of shit. I don't know if you have anything to add on that. I think with that, that's probably a good spot to end. Yeah, he's
we'll
still a shithead. Go ahead.
let me we will definitely have to do like some sort of Delphi update next week, because it's really not much that I have to cover, but it's still more than we should cover now. But yeah, if you're wondering, Richard Allen was given the maximum sentence of 130 years, and the prosecution command to essentially bar any release to the public of autopsy photos or photographs of the crime scene. And yeah, it seems to me like it's perfectly in line with how they cover these things up. And so I'm not at all shocked at that result. You know, they refuse. Of course, we already know they barred the, I won't get into it, but they barred, clearly the judge wouldn't even allow the defense to make the legitimate arguments using exculpatory evidence proving connections of Odinism to the crime scene. But, we'll get into that next week. It's kind of a very sad ordeal, but I wanted to send this. This picture. Hold on. I'm sending this picture to Jules real quick because it's absolutely ridiculous. And it's something that I think that when you actually see it, it'll really blow you away and kind of make it more. I think it's not like at all some sort of smoking gun evidence, but it does prove, a long-standing connection. And I'll just do it next week, honestly. But it's this old ass clip of a newspaper from 1989 from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and it's called On Their Toes, and it's a very small section, and it's all regarding Robert Maxwell and Donald Trump. And so I'll cover that next week, honestly, because it would be something fun to talk about. So.
Yeah, let's read through that next week, or maybe if I end up having you come on the morning show one of these days, maybe we'll do that. But I do have Jules on the morning show tomorrow at 10 Eastern, 10 a.m. Eastern. Let us know, Austin, though, where people can find you at, and if you're working on anything new, what's going on?
Man, I think I'm for sure gonna end up doing an episode on the Delphi murders with William at some point, because I was talking to him privately, and he was like, I could write a book on this. And I entirely agree on that. It's a fascinating thing. But so if you haven't yet, check out my most recent solo project that I've released. And I'm kind of figuring out my vision for this upcoming project, you know what I'm saying? Which I have a few different things on the short list that I've wanted to cover for quite some time. So we'll see what I land on. But anyway, other than that, I have to say, I can't appreciate I really can't appreciate you guys more for just, being willing to remain open-minded and consider these ideas and realize that I'm not someone here attempting to, I can't stand when people, embrace the idea of being an influencer. It's like all I'm doing is trying to present ideas that have convinced me, that these official narratives are entirely just, it's not even plausible. And I think at this point, it's almost undeniable that there's an alternative that, is far more convincing. And so, thanks for taking this ride with me, everyone. Like, I got nothing but love for you and Happy New Year. You guys are my people. Now, that was my goal. I set out to find my people. And I think that is legitimately taking place. And so I don't feel quite as alone in regards to these ideas. And that is, you can't put a price on that, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's cool to see you growing. Cool. I mean, especially in like such an algorithmic way happening all of a sudden. I knew for a while. This is why I joke that I got in early. Buy low, sell high. So that's kind of what I did with you. So I got you in at the start. But I do want to remind you guys, if you do want to support what I'm doing, you can do that over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Obviously, me and Austin have different channels. I have the No Way Jose channel. He has the Underclass podcast, and we come together once a week on Tuesday at 9:30 on both of our platforms for Already Dead. But I have my, at once a week I do like usually a topic-driven episode, and I also have been doing probably like 3 to 5 days a week. Been doing morning streams. Call those the morning dump, where we go through all sorts of different research, a lot of current events, a lot of old, just kind of go through some articles, stuff of the like. But if you want to be able to get early access to my weekly episodes, the weekly topic-driven episodes, and also be able to come on as a talking head alongside me and Austin for the call-in portion of the show, you can do that at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020 at the lowest level of $2. The highest level is my sponsors. I read them off every episode. I have my co-host on Tower Gang at Tower Gang Toad. I also have at Abrogate D's, at ZOVERACK, at _Infinite Zeal. I also have Tim Tuttle, or you can follow him at Jolly on Klebold, then Will Bell, his delicious blueberry rabbit eye wine, then Torin May, and at INWARAD Lover, at Inward Lover, because we all need to learn to turn inward and learn to love ourselves. So I think we should all become inward lovers. So follow him at Inward Lover on Twitter. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Make sure you're giving me and Austin 5-star reviews on iTunes or Spotify. That helps out a lot. And if you aren't hitting the like button right now, well then, fuck you. That goes a really far way, and that takes you 2 seconds. Hit the like button, whether you're on Rumble, YouTube, wherever you're doing it. Go like it everywhere it's put out. Help a brother out. With that, guys, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Love you all. Thanks, guys, from Fire Pixie. Thanks to you guys. We are out. Bye-bye.